It's like walking in a jungle. This is thick. It's amazing. So the trail follows the Cline River. But the Cline River sometimes looks kind of like, I'd call it more like a canyon. Sorry, but so it's not always possible for the trail to stay very close to the river. So once in a while it skirts off over the side of a mountain and into the forest. The trail does. You just can't stay close to the river all the time. So here's what it looks like ahead now. I just leave Tikka. Another glorious morning, 6:24. Like I said, short day today. Only about 11K. Break the trip back into 3 days instead of 2. Maybe I won't hurt my shin so bad. Now, anyone wondering, I did not hang my food. I left everything in the tent with me last night. It's me and Tikka. Beautiful morning, didn't rain. Just boiling some water and get a coffee going. I know many of you would like to hike alone and have hesitation, and I'll tell you, it's rewarding because you're not always talking to somebody else. You know, you're on the trail and you're alone with your thoughts, and sometimes you have an event like this where you get a place to yourself and you can really collect your thoughts. But it's also an accomplishment to be able to say that you've gone somewhere on your own, especially a long distance, is quite rewarding. So I encourage everyone to try and hike alone. And what I want to do is I want to just give you pointers that will help you to hike alone. So I mean, the first thing is you have to be mentally prepared, because you're going to be lonely, and you know, one of the ways to deal with the loneliness, I always think, is to spend more time on the trail and enjoy the trail, because camp is the loneliest time when you're alone in camp. So unless of course you show up at a camp and there's other people, but so I spend more time on the trail than I do in camp when I'm alone. That's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice is, of course, to start off slow and do trails that are more popular, but do them alone. So a good example of that would be the Skyline Trail in Jasper. So if you go on the Skyline Trail but you do it alone, you will not be alone. You'll be alone during the day, but you know, it's a 42-kilometer hike, and you can do it, let's say, in 2 nights or 3 nights, and every night when you get to camp, you'll have hiked by yourself, but there'll be fellow hikers around you. So if there's an issue, if there's something, you can rely on the help of others. I said earlier that one of the key things for hiking alone is perhaps to start slow and go on a popular trail, but do it by yourself. And don't push yourself on your first day. Just go, you know, you might do an in and out. Like another example in Alberta is Glacier Lake. Fairly easy hike. Popular, only, you know, 8.5, 9 kilometers in. So if you're practicing going alone, go to Glacier Lake. Hopefully there'll be a few people there. Hopefully, maybe not. Maybe that's but you're only going 9 kilometers and then coming back out. So if you do that alone, you'll get used to that feeling. And then maybe on your next trip you do a double day. But the other thing about going alone that I often do is I go counter current. I go in the opposite direction of the popular direction that people hike a trail. So an example is the Brazil Loop. So most people do the Brazil Loop in a counterclockwise fashion, or they do it in a clockwise fashion. So they'll start at Nigel and then they'll go along Jonah Shoulder and Brazil and come back down. But if you're alone, a good strategy is to do it in the opposite direction, because if you're all traveling in the same direction, technically they'll always be in front of you and people will always be behind, and you won't necessarily encounter each other until the end of the day. But if you're going counter to everybody, So if there's 10 groups going in one direction and you're going in the other, you will encounter those 10 groups throughout your trip. So on a popular trail like that, you will encounter a group of people every, let's say, couple of hours. And so if something were to happen to you, all you have to do is stay stationary where you are, and somebody coming in the other direction will meet you. So traveling in the opposite direction is also a very good strategy. Now when you're hiking alone, it's absolutely essential that you file a plan with somebody. And so me, I left here, I filed a plan with my wife Karen, and I told her very specifically where I'm going. I said I'm starting at the Cline River, one day on the trail, then Pinto, and then I'm coming back in 3 days. And I said I'm expecting to come out on Sunday. I have supplies for more than 5 days, and she knows that if I don't come out on Sunday, don't panic, but if I don't come out by Monday, then perhaps start to organize, call and get something organized, maybe to come looking for me. So a plan is very important. Now, relying on the help of others is a great thing about hiking, but it's also one of the things you really need to consider when you're hiking alone is your risk assessment. And I have a video up there. I did a risk assessment video a year or two ago, and hiking, contrary to popular belief, is not that hazardous. And when you do the risk assessment, you'll realize there's a few risks, but you can easily mitigate against them with the gear you bring. And if you're really uncomfortable, you can bring a little satellite communication device. But I encourage you to do a risk assessment at home, because what it'll teach you is that by hiking alone, there is a consideration. You do need to bring a little more gear because you need to be absolutely self-sufficient. So something that you might mitigate by being in a group, you can't when you're alone. So an example of that is noise. When you're hiking as a group, you're making noise, and that's mitigating against animal encounters. But alone, that becomes a bigger risk. So so your bear spray is critical, and trying to make noise on the trail is critical. But the other thing about a risk assessment for people who hike alone is that on the trail, you take different risks when you're alone. So keep that in mind. So something as simple as a little river ford that you might do as a group and help each other across. If you're alone, you're going to have to, think more about the consequences. And it's not just things that are obvious like river fords, but it's things like, navigating somewhere that's a little off the beaten path. You don't want to do that too often when you're alone. If you've told people you're going from point A to point B, you want to stick to point A to point B if they come looking for you. So going alone is risky. You have to consider risks like stepping over a log or a slippery rock. Things that might seem minor can have a pretty serious consequence when you're alone if the event goes unplanned. So risk management while you're on the trail is critical. Now, I say being in camp is the loneliest part, but that's true and it's not. One of the ways to enjoy camp more perhaps and avoid the loneliness is you will have chores. So if you hike longer during the day and then you get to camp later, let's say, then you'll spend most of your time in camp at the end of the day setting up your tent, organizing your food, drying your gear, maybe collecting firewood, getting water. So you have more to occupy you. You saw on this trip, it's not uncommon for me to spend 2-3 hours once I get to camp just with chores, and then that leaves me a little bit of time at the end of the day to really relax. But I tend to go to bed early and wake up early when I'm alone. Now, I've been doing this a little bit longer, so I don't find it as lonely in camp. What I like to do in camp is go explore and check out things. And another strategy that I didn't do on this trip, but is to bring a book. Here in Alberta, we have lots of daylight, so you can bring a book or something and sit around camp at the end of the day with your fire and read your book. So that's how you deal with the loneliness. But trust me, if you're really worried about loneliness, perhaps hiking on an isolated trail is not your choice. So go, take a popular trail where at the campsite there's going to be 3 or 4 other groups, and then you can socialize with groups. So that's the fantastic way. Now, it's not an option for everybody, but one of the ways I enjoy hiking alone is I bring Tikka, a pet, a companion, and it gives you a sense of security and companionship to have a dog along. So, you know, it's not pure solo hiking, but it's pretty close because the dog's not talking back. At least I don't think she is. So there you have it. I mentioned 5 things or 6 things I think that are important for learning to hike alone. So the first one is do a proper risk assessment at home and make sure you have the right gear, because you're alone, so you can't rely on anybody else technically. And then on the trail, same thing, change your mindset, do a few more risk assessments, because things that are, you know, you're alone, so be very careful about where you choose to go, what river you cross, what hill you climb, what side slope you take. Do those things. So risk assessment. Number 2, hike a popular trail, but do it alone. So go on a trail where you know there will be other people, so you'll be alone, you'll have your own tent, you're by yourself, but at night there are other people in camp or perhaps on the trail that can provide support if necessary. Number 3, on that trail, go counterclockwise or in the opposite direction that most people do it. So that's also a strategy, so you'll encounter more people frequently. Number 4, make sure you file a plan. People have to know about where you're going. Number 5 is, what did I say number 5 was? Oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Number 5, hike longer during the day and spend less time in camp, because camp happens to be the lonely place. Number 6, start small, right? Really start small. So maybe just do an overnight. So go to a place that's 6 or 7 kilometers off the beaten path and camp there, and then come back out. And before you know it, you'll have mastered the art of hiking by yourself. It's a fantastic experience. You know, for me personally, the reason I started hiking alone is because I wanted to go farther and farther, and people just didn't want to go as far as I did, so I ended up having to go alone. And maybe I enjoy the sport more than some, so that was one of my alternatives. Anyways, hope you enjoyed these quick tips, and don't be shy. Get out there on your own, learn it. It's an amazing skill. There's a great satisfaction that comes from me being able to absolutely dry everything. You know, my tent's right there. I moved my tent over here. I mean, if you're good, you know, and you get to camp and it's raining, you can set up your tent quickly and a little bit of the tent will get wet, but then you put your pack underneath your awning and then you unpack and set up your sleeping bag and your thermarest. But no matter what, when it's raining, you get a little bit of rain on yourself. You're rolling and stuff, you're touching your bag, you're touching everything, you're sweating, and everything gets damp. And so there's a huge satisfaction on a day like today where I got a beautiful beaming sun to just absolutely dry everything perfectly, get all that moisture out of there. And you know, it's 8:20. I'm targeting a 10 o'clock start because I'm not going far today. I'm only going like 10 kilometers, but even a 10 o'clock start on most days in June, July, August gives you, you know, you can hike from 10 till 6, which is 8 hours, which is at, you know, at 3 kilometers an hour, you're doing 24 kilometers. So that's a comfortable pace. But so I'm really taking advantage of drawing everything today. And then for me, I have a 46 liter light AF, you know, the curve. And it's not a very big bag, but I'll manage to get everything. But there's a real satisfaction when you pack everything tightly, perfectly, and you're not wet, and you pack it all in there. And the one thing I don't like is having too many things hanging on the outside of my pack. So with this pack and this amount of weight, I'll get everything in there and it'll be just satisfying. Boots, knee braces, little seat, food bag, pillow, GPS, extra pot, Tikka's pack, toilet paper, first aid kit, toiletries, clothing, tent, Crocs, pack, Tikka's foamy, rain jacket, puffy jacket, socks, thermarest, pants, sleeping bag. Not complicated, folks. It's not complicated. All right. First things first in the morning, got to cross that creek again, the outlet to the lake. Don't laugh. I'm wearing my underwear. Woo. Come on, Tikka. Let's go in the sun and put our boots back on. Wonder where the trail goes. Do I go back the same way, or do I take a chance that it's follow the creek? Well, there's an advantage to crossing a creek first thing in the morning. Cools off the feet, cleans the feet, and now I can make sure my boots are very properly laced. I always make sure there's no little pine needle or burr or grain of whatever in my socks. Like, just shake them out and make sure there's nothing rubbing. Said it before, footwear is a personal choice. Some people can hike in running shoes. I can't. I hike in boots. Looks like these ones need a new sole again. And I think I'm not going to chance it and try and follow the creek and cut across. I don't feel like taking my boots off again, so I'm going to go follow the lake shore. And there's a cut across, I know, because I took it accidentally one time years ago. So we'll see. No matter what, I don't want to do the kind of bushwhacking I did at the end of the day yesterday. That was no fun. A terrible way to end the day. 9:30, I lied. This is part of the Great Divide Trail, so most people are coming from, they go over House Pass and then they come out to the highway at Saskatchewan Crossing, resupply there, stay a night, enjoy the big buffet, and then hike out again via Owen Creek, which takes you to Michelle Lake over the highest pass on the GDT, Michelle Pass at 3,600 or 2,650 meters. And then come down and then skirt this lake. So in the summer, this is popular if you don't want to be at the main campsite. Up ahead somewhere, hopefully we go by it again. There's well, I didn't go by it yesterday, I went by it years ago, but there's a sign, a tribute to police officers who rescued a man who was living here 100 years ago or so, and he got injured. I can't remember exactly how, and he was at home in his log cabin in terrible shape, and natives, I think 2 or 3 natives on a hunting party, found him, and then they went out and got probably the Mounties at the time, the Northwest Mounted Police, and they came and rescued him. So there's a plaque up ahead somewhere that as a tribute to that event. I'm just looking at my track from yesterday on the GPS, and this is kind of where we came out. We did a crazy bushwhack, but I think there's a trail Well, there has to be a trail because we found a trail, and remember I saw that sign that said the Pinto, which cut across through this marsh. But the trail went ahead, so I have a feeling the trail intersects over there, so I'm going to try and find it. You see stuff like this, but that doesn't look encouraging. Let's check it out a bit. Nope, not going to go that way. Tikka, let's go back to the lake. The real trail will be evident. Now this is more evident, and it's heading in the right direction. This is the Lakeshore Trail. Let's go this way. First chicken of the day. He scared me. I was in fly watch. Not going very far. See the moose? That's where I oh, with a baby. Cow and a calf. Ah! Ah! They're so well adapted to this environment. You can just run across this muskeg and cross the creeks, and they look totally awkward and uncoordinated, but they're pretty impressive. Nothing's more impressive than a big bull moose who puts his rack down backwards like this and just goes crashing through the trees. It's all marsh. Alright, my advice, ignore that. That's crap, because if you're coming from Cline, you're going to come this way and you're going to see this, and that goes to the lake, and so does that. Go straight and then follow the lake and you'll get to the outlet. This is way too marshy, too wet, so I'm actually going to move that sign. There's another boundary sign over there. So obviously there must be a trail there. Where else would they put a boundary sign? So there's a trail on the other side of the Cline. There's another sign there. Almost looks like it says no camping or something. We got gorgeous bridges like this all the way through. I counted at least 12 or 13. Very well maintained by volunteers. They do a better job than Parks Canada. That says a lot. gonna stop here for a while. It's only 1 o'clock. I'm doing great time, so might as well take a long break during the day. Come on, go. Beautiful day so far, sunshine. Now Tikka's bell serves about 3 purposes. The first one is it makes noise, an unnatural noise, the tinging noise, so hopefully a bear or an animal on the trail will hear that. Now my experience is I've actually had encounters with her with the bell. You know, you can see a video up there where we met a bear even though she had the bell. So the bell is no guarantee, but that's one purpose. The second purpose of the bell is I can find her if she decides to go off a little bit on her own. I can hear her coming behind me, or if she's still ahead I can stop and I can hear her, because she does go, you know, not too far, but she will go ahead or stay behind a bit. Sometimes she'll chase a squirrel. And the third thing is, it's just natural, it's just I'm accustomed to it, but if I hear the bell and she's behind me, I know her pack is still on, because it's happened. Tikka's lost her pack on about 2 or 3 occasions over the years. And so when I stop hearing the ding-a-ding-a-ding, I know it's time to turn around and see where she dropped her pack. Look at the power of water. So obviously must have been some real flooding in this riverbed. All the rock has been pushed like a dam, like a rock wall. So just quickly, back to back, encountered a couple of groups heading in the opposite direction, heading into Pinto Lake right now. Appears both groups came in about a day behind me and left this morning from Waterfall Campground. And so not traveling very fast, because I feel like I'm only about 5 kilometers from Waterfall, but doesn't matter, to each his own. Happy Canada Day, everybody. Yeah, today is July 1st, 2022. So Canada is 155 years old. Quick story, I turned 55 in a couple of weeks. And so I'm a centennial baby. I was born in 1967 in Canada, the centennial year. And my mom told me a story one time on this date, a few days before I was born in 1967. Mom was tired and hot and wanted me to come out. And so she was living in Ottawa at the time. So Dad and her went to Parliament Hill to watch the fireworks, hoping that the noise would encourage little Marty to pop out. Well, little Marty didn't do it. He stayed in there another 2 weeks. But the other thing that would have been cool for my mom probably is, you know, every town has a New Year's Eve baby, and I'm sure Ottawa in 1967 would have had a centennial baby contest. So if I had been one of the first kids born on July 1st, 1967, there might have been a little prize in it for Mom. Oh well, I miss my mom. Mom passed away July 9th, 2012, so another reminder. 10 years ago this year. Miss my mom, miss my dad. It's just the way it is. I'm about 2 kilometers from the Waterfall Campground, which I also call a heliport. I mean, helicopters land there. It's at an intersection of, you know, Waterfall Creek and the Cline. It's probably mosquito infested, and it might even be busy. And that's as far as I feel like going today. So if I go beyond that, I'm going, then tomorrow just becomes too short. So I think I'm going to stop here 2 kilometers before the camp, and this is what I found right there. The gentle noise of the river. Yeah, I need a night of very off the beaten path, remote feeling camping. So this is it. I don't want to be in an established campsite. This will suit me just fine. It's 3:30, lots of time. All right, it's looking like home. There's the tent. The view's the wrong way, but that's okay. I mean, it was a debate between, do I want to be in a camp where there could be other people, and I kind of doubt it, but you know, a little companionship for July 1st, though I'm not that proud of Canada these days, not enough to maybe celebrate. But this campsite has everything else. It has a beautiful view, solitude, lots of firewood, close water, line of sight if something comes wandering in here. So you know what, I'm pretty happy. It'll be a nice night. I bought a case of these a couple of years ago, and this one is best before October 2023, so it's still good, but it's like I sort of throw them in the pack as an emergency ration all the time, but then I never use it. And so today it was in my pack, and for whatever reason, this Forever Young mac and cheese, I was craving it during the day, so now I'm going to eat it tonight. I'm just boiling a little bit of water on the fire here. I just had a cup of soup, but I don't know, one of those weird things. I was literally craving an Alpine Air vegetarian entree. Go figure. The key to these Alpine Airs is to let them hydrate longer than they say. So they say, you know, 2 cups of water and let it sit for like 10 to 12 minutes. That's never enough. Never enough. So let it sit longer. And when I have a fire, so I let it sit next to the fire where there's some heat on there, because that's the problem with letting it. I think that's one of the reasons people don't let them sit very long. Because they tend to get cold. Oh wow, that's good. Anything with cheese and garlic. I should have brought Tabasco sauce. I'm getting raindrops. Interesting. And macaroni with corn and peas. I have a feeling Tikka's going to get a bit of this. That's rain. And it's coming right at me. And that way is gorgeous. I didn't need to cut any wood with the saw. Like, there's stuff like this everywhere. You just, you know, it burns quickly, but you just pick away at it and burn it. or it's just gonna get washed down the river. Look at the slides of gravel, of sediment, all coming down. So imagine this mountain here, imagine it, you know, another 1,000 feet higher, because what's down there was up there, and over time just rain and erosion and snow is just making all these rocks chip off and fall down. So that is almost one big giant gravel pile. You know, it's all loose rock that's been eroding and sliding down. Totally fascinating. I mean, these mountains behind me would have been so high like 400 million years ago, and this was like so low, but it's been eroding and sediment's been coming off the Rocky Mountains and flowing east. And so basically the whole province of Alberta is called the Canadian Rockies Sedimentary Basin. That's why there's so here, because we've got so much erosion, bury all these historic, you know, prehistoric trees are just buried under, and then they decompose and they become oil and gas. But so these mountains, as they're pushed up by the continental plate and the Pacific plate going underneath, they push up and then they erode. But these mountains would have been so much higher 400 million years ago. Just water, just water is so powerful. I mean, think of this water. Like, I went to Pinto Lake, which is the headwaters of this river, and basically now I'm following the river and I'm going downhill, but this water just wants to follow gravity and go lower, and it finds the lowest spot and then it erodes a channel, and if it comes to an obstacle, it just eventually, you know, it'll flood, go over it, but eventually it erodes that obstacle. Way down at the bottom there's a canyon that's absolutely incredible, because all this water coming down there wanted to go down to Abram Lake, and there was like this big hard rock in the way, and it would have formed a lake behind here, but eventually that canyon got eroded and now it's just a river. It's just so amazing what geology and glacial geology and water and hydrology, once you understand these things and you look at these mountains, you see them in a different perspective. So I built this fire ring, but I left a little opening there because then I can put the pot, and even though the pot is not directly over the flame, the heat here is phenomenal, more than 100 degrees, so it'll boil the water. It's almost ready to boil. I'm just going to make a tea, my last thing of the night. Now I really wish I had a book. I'd just be in here right now and I'd got another hour of daylight and I could just read my book. But you know, me and Tikka are just two old hikers. Tikka's gonna be, she was born in 2013, so Tikka's gonna be 9. Actually, I got her on my birthday in 2013, so she's born like in April, May, June, July, maybe born in May, something like that. And look at how good she is. Look at how good she is. And I'm going to be 55, so we're just two old hikers. Today was a great day. We did about 14 kilometers, and then tomorrow, if it's raining, we'll leave. We'll just hike out. If it's gorgeous, then we might break up tomorrow, because I only have about 18 kilometers tomorrow, so we might break it up and do a 9 and a 9 or something. You know, it'll depend on circumstances. It always does. You know, have a plan, but be flexible and go with the flow. I'm going to put on my puffy jacket to go to bed because I think it's going to be cold by being close to the river like this. Anyways, folks, good night. End of day 3. And we'll see you in the morning.